I love Nancy's background there.
Oh yeah, Nancy. I want to be
Where
Let's
I'd
go
like to
there.
be.
Amen.
there. She said that's where she liked to be.
Yeah.
Hey, you all, thank you for coming to the diversity, not adversity session. And we'll let some others drop into the room and then we'll get started.
So Nancy is on the beach somewhere.
She ain't far from Greenville. She ain't far.
That's true. Maybe that's the river.
There you go.
As everyone joins, I guess you noticed my background. It is Wilmington. I wanted everybody to kind of feel like even though they were virtual, that we were still there actually.
I
All
love
right.
that out there.
So we'll go ahead and get started with our session. It is 3:02. So this session is being sponsored by Internet Work Engineering. They are a platinum sponsor. Internet Engineering, IE, is a private technology consulting company that improves, business outcomes with the expert selection, implementation, and operation of information technology. Since 1996, our expert combination of people, partners, and process have allowed us to become a strategic service provider for clients throughout the Southeast.
That he always will answer.
Can you please mute yourself? Thanks. With our ideas to execution, I2E methodology, we deliver customized technology solutions that align with business goals to create a distinct competitive advantage. To learn more about IE, visit ineteng.com. This session is called Diversity, Not Adversity, and is a roundtable discussion. Diversity is not something to fear in the workplace and in our personal lives. Diversity is something to embrace, and in doing so, rewards can be achieved by all. Every one of us has a quality that makes us diverse. Everyone is uniquely different. How do we recognize the diversity within ourselves and in others and utilize this valuable uniqueness in the workplace to improve upon our teams and ourselves as individuals? Glenn Hastede, ITS Director for Onslow County, and Steve Randone, IT for Brunswick County, will lead this roundtable discussion to explore how we can recognize the DNA within our respective organizations and utilize diversity not as a challenge, but as an opportunity to create the best within ourselves and others. I'll now turn the session over to Glenn and Steve.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We're great to see you all.
Yes, and I'm Steve Randone, again, Brunswick County IT Director. I've been here 33 years. Glad to be here with Glenn to discuss this topic. I know that we all experience diversity in our workplace, and we're here to learn from you just as much as you're here to learn from us. So I guess to get started, and now we see Glenn, to get started, we'll talk about the different types of diversity. I want to ask the question, and feel free for anybody to chime in, but what are the different types of diversity that we do see in the workplace? So sometimes, you know, we think of diversity as only race, but it's much more than race. There's other factors, including if you look at the name on Glenn and myself, he named himself the old white guy, and I'm the older white guy. But age can be a factor when it comes in to diversity as well. So what are others that we see?
This is Jennifer. I think diversity of experience is one of the things that I'm struggling with now, is making sure that you see that broadly and that you don't discount folks for lack of experience.
Yeah, because that cuts both ways, right? As Steve was mentioning that, there's that age discrimination isn't just for older people. Younger folks also get that age discrimination. So yeah, good point.
Yeah, if you look at age, I can speak for Brunswick County and give an example. When I first took IT here at Brunswick County, there was a bunch of older guys in the shop, programmers mainly, and programming in COBOL, I think is the main program that they were utilizing. And then we started adding new staff, and we wanted to start programming in newer languages, the latest and greatest. And we brought in some young people. And so one of the challenges we had was basically getting the older people and the younger people to where they could work together. And so that definitely posed some challenges. I'll talk about how we may have solved that in just a little bit, but we also have gender. Gender can be a diversity as well, sexual orientation. Anybody have any other?
Religion.
Yep.
Excuse me?
Certainly
Religion.
religion. Yep, certainly.
I would like to add that, even a different opinion, from a diversity standpoint. And I think one of the things during the past year with COVID, was having people work remote. And in some ways, I think that helped strengthen relationships because you're, having to figure out how to communicate with folks, but and maybe just gain a little bit more of appreciation of the different perspectives and opinions that teammates bring to your team.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the last year, we've seen such a division, especially along political boundaries, that, we may have people that are on opposite ends of the spectrum working in the same office, and we have to be able to, do that effectively, be able to work together and for a common good without getting in each other's way. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
A couple of people put in the chat, couple of people put cultural diversity, and someone put even disabilities.
Yeah, good point, Sherelle.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, abilities and disabilities, definitely one.
Cultural.
Geographic locations as well, where people come from. And the reason why I say that is I know that when I first came to Brunswick County, and again, it was 33 years ago, and the county at that time was made up of mainly citizens that had been in this county all their life. And I came into the county being from the outside, and it definitely posed good, a few issues along the way, and just people, coming to know me and getting to know me and know that I was not there, as a adversity to them. I was there to help and just being accepted because I was an outsider.
Grammarly does more than.
Excuse me?
That was just somebody.
I just muted somebody there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I think we can all understand that, that we have many different types of diversity, right? And I know I, for one, I don't like hiring people that think like me. I don't need anybody else in my group that thinks like me because I've already got me. So I always try to, hire people that come from different experiences, that have different viewpoints, that have a different, look at life, because that, to me, helps improve innovation. It helps improve our brainstorming. That helps improve our solutions. It makes our solutions, to me, more robust because I'm going to come at it this way. Someone else is going to come from, these other directions. And to me, our solutions are more solid because of it. But so how do you guys see diversity as, improving your culture or improving what you're doing in your organizations?
I can say, Glenn, what it has brought about in our office is really debating different perspectives. When we're looking at something, we're looking at, we're bringing about more ideas, and also looking or finding more holes in those ideas because we're looking at it from all different angles, so to speak. And also when we're programming, we can relate more to our target audience because our makeup is similar to the target audience.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to say, even within just bringing it on back home to NCLGISA, in the past, you saw a lot of the same people on the board of directors and leadership positions. And I think that our board is extremely diverse right now. And I'm not just talking about in race. I'm talking about in age. I'm talking about in positions and gender, all of that. And I see the difference and I'm not saying that our board is better than anybody else's, but I just see the difference in the things that we're doing and the ideas that are coming to the table. Not everybody on our board is a CIO, and I think I just see a big difference in, where we're going and the ideas that are coming. So even you can translate that even to the workplace. When you have those different people giving ideas, I think it can make a huge difference in the organizations.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to echo what Blanca and Scott have put in the chat, for more openness and doing things different and having a richer workplace. And I think that's definitely true. I think there's a challenge there, though, in that you have to really create an environment where people are allowed to disagree, with each other, that there's constructive conflict, for lack of a better phrase, that they're able to disagree with each other, but not have their egos attached to that disagreement, to not have, get automatically defensive when somebody disagrees with you, that instead you're looking at the goal and, so what, somebody disagrees with me. I mean, I expect my team to disagree with me, actually, because then we can, use that as, okay, well, where do we go from here? If you disagree with that, where do we go and how do we get there? So yeah, I think, there's a challenge in that you do have to make sure that you're cognizant of that and creating that.
Yeah, you can't be a passive bystander. I mean, you have to be proactive, and you have to make it a friendly workplace for everybody, an environment where everybody feels like, their ideas and concerns are heard. I mean, as an example, I know that in the past we have had meetings, and we've had a diverse group, and some were unwilling to speak out because of that diversity. And so you usually have the same people speaking in the meeting and sharing the ideas in the meeting, and others sitting back just listening. And so it really took focusing on those individuals and actually asking them openly in the meetings for their ideas and their suggestions and so on, that really kind of brought them out of that shell. And so, yeah, you have your challenges and you have to meet them head on.
I have a question for my old white guys. So, so within IT, I think IT is probably, and this is maybe selfish on my part, but I think generally we're pretty an open-minded group. I think we tend to respect, we could respect people because we see so much different, so many different types of people that are not only within our organization, but also that we have to work with outside of our organization. So what do you do, or what are your strategies when that culture that you're trying to build in IT is not reflected in your larger local government? How do you how do you move outside of IT and push that out?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, right? Because really our influence may be strongest within our own departments, obviously. But because IT really spans all the departments, we do have a significant amount of push and pull within the rest of the organization. We do have the ability to drive some level of change, and that generally is because we're being included more and more in what we would consider non-technical committees and groups and things like that, because everything has a communications and a technical aspect to it now, and they're seeing the value of having IT people in the room to help at least organize their thoughts and create a website and do those things. And so I think that's given us a larger voice to be able to talk about these things.
And as a manager, you have to be an advocate for it. You have to show that that is what you're doing in your respective departments. I mean, make it known. And really, from the products that come out of that, the positive that comes out of that, I think speaks for itself. Like we said before, you really evaluate things a lot differently and a lot closer, and your products, I believe, are more successful in the end. And I think that kind of proves the point how diversity works. So really by your actions.
So, here's the where the rubber meets the road, right? So how do you effectively hire for diversity so that it's fair for all the candidates? I could tell you, obviously everyone has implicit bias, and you have to recognize that implicit bias. So when I'm hiring, I ask that they remove the names and just give me the candidate number to do some of that. So when I'm reading somebody's experience, all I'm seeing is, the experience of 445, 347, and I'm seeing their application, that kind of thing. What are some other ideas that maybe some other people have on how to make sure that you're hiring for diversity without being unfair about it?
One thing that Mecklenburg County did was the interview panels have to be diverse. And so, like, I get called a lot because it can't be, it has to be diverse in every way. Like Steve mentioned in the very beginning, we're not just talking about race. I work in IT within my department, within Park and Recreation. So they can't just have all recreation people on the panel. They can't just have all of the same race. They can't have all of the same gender. So all of that has to be diverse, and that helps to make making better decisions when hiring staff.
Yeah, it may seem like overkill, but we do the same thing, Felina. Usually in our interview process, when I first began at the county, it was just me, myself, and I in the interview process. But as we went on and we wanted to build a more diverse environment, I usually have a female in there, someone of color, an older person, and a younger person.
Do you guys find yourself anytime biased against people who have work experience but not necessarily IT experience?
I will tell you that we have had a lot of success here hiring people and training them regardless of their education and experience. Yes, experience and education, they are, a great thing to have, but some of my most dedicated, most successful and long-term employees are all that maybe we brought in as an intern or we brought in as a trainee, and we worked with them and helped them develop their skills. And, that's made us a very successful shop, especially when it comes to the programming side.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of tag on to what Steve said. Way back when I had a job opening and actually hired the guy with the least amount of experience because it was a desktop technician type position, and I needed somebody with good customer service skills. And this guy was making a career change from being a social worker coming into IT. So I knew he could work with people. And I knew that he came in not knowing anything. So he would be eager to learn, and he was making a career change, and the guy's still with the county and is a great employee. So, yeah, sometimes you really have to look at, all the factors, so that you're not biased just on what's on paper.
Yeah,
Sandy makes good hires.
Yeah, I hired Felina and she's still there. How about that?
Yeah, you have to understand that what people put on paper, sometimes people aren't very good at selling themselves on paper.
That's right.
I'll give two examples. I have two programmers on staff, been with us for quite a long time. Neither one of them, when looking at their application, would I have given an interview to. And I'll just be upfront. But what those two people did, and this was actually a couple years apart, they actually took the time to come to my office and they asked to speak to me. They told me that they were applying for the job. They talked with me for a while. They told me their qualifications, but more so, I could sense that these people were very capable of learning. And after speaking with them, when we had the interview process, I called them in for the interviews, and they blew us away. They actually had done their homework and had worked hard, and they actually were the best interviews that we probably ever had. And we would not have even given them an interview if they had not come in our office. And one of them was a guy of color, and the other one was a young kid right out of college that had no experience at all. And they're two of the best employees that we have.
Oh, I've always said that if you have soft skills, like personal skills and relational skills and a desire to learn, I mean, I can teach you everything else. It's hard to teach, how to interact with people. And that's a skill that unfortunately not a lot of IT people have. Or at least that's the stereotype. So yeah, I mean, if you've got the willingness to learn and you've got the people skills, then I can teach you how to, support hardware or work on a help desk.
Yeah, I concur with that. We always try, like our big thing here in Onslow is we always try to hire people. I want people because I want somebody with some bedside manner. I want somebody that is going to, because relationships is that building in those relationships with the user community or your coworkers and everything else. That's what's really sets you apart, right? That's what really makes you successful, because you have to be able to communicate with your coworkers from other departments to really understand what they need. They could say, "Oh, I need a wireless access point," and then you sit down and talk to them, and you realize what they really need is XYZ, whatever it is. But you have to be able to sit and talk with them. You have to be able to have those relationships, and that's what helps you move the organization forward. So yeah, I think that's really a big deal.
I was kind of, Glenn, I was kind of forced to think outside the box. You know, when I said a while ago, when I first started with the county, when I would do the interview process, it was me, myself, and I would go by what was on the application. And I would look at education, I would look at experience and so on. And I had at that time on my staff, no one of color. And I actually had 2 members of the NAACP that came in my office, and they sat down with me and they asked me why I did not hire anybody of color. And I told them, well, looking at the applications, you know, the ones that are of color, that I presume are of color, aren't qualified. They don't have the qualifications that the others have on paper. And after going through that, I started thinking about it and thinking, well, maybe it's not just what's on the paper. And that's what kind of changed me to where I started, you know, looking at the individual themselves and what they are capable of, and not what their actual experience in education was.
Right. Because when I started here, they used to have interviews, and it would be the director and maybe the deputy director would be sitting in on the interviews, and maybe somebody from HR. You know, since I've been here, when we interview, everybody on that team, whether it be IT or GIS, that can attend all of the interviews. Like if you can only make 2 of them, you know, don't bother, because we can't use your opinion if you don't see everyone, right? But everybody that can attend is in that meeting. Now it's scary for the people that are interviewing. You know, they come in and it's a panel of people, but when they come in and when I'm talking to them, you know, I'm like, hey, before you go in the room, there's a bunch of people in there. This is when we were in person, right? There's a bunch of people in there. I don't want you to be scared that you're walking into a panel and you're expecting to interview with maybe 1 or 2 people. You know, look at this as a benefit. This is a point. This is where you and them can start to build that relationship. The other things that really helped by having everyone in the room, first of all, our decision making was better. You know, obviously, because we have that many more viewpoints in the room, but also everybody that was in there, because they felt their opinion is valued on who we're hiring, they have ownership in that person that you're hiring. You know, and so they have ownership in bringing that person along and making sure that they are exposed to everything that they need to be exposed to, that they're learning what they need to be learned, and that they're given the fair shake to be able to, you know, be part of the team. So that I think is very important.
This is Sherelle. I have a question. So all of this sounds great, and but how really, in reality, if you are in a city or county and you know that diversity is not there, or diversity is not in your department, how really do you address it? How do you handle it from there?
Right.
To help bring about change.
Yeah, it depends. Like, that's a good point, Shay. Like, where are you in that organization? It's going to be difficult, depending upon where you are, to be able to leverage that change. But as long as we're in that organization, we have the opportunity to grow. And once you get into those positions, it's being able to utilize those positions to be able to move things forward, right? And if you're not thinking about this before you get into those positions, then you're not going to be able to move it forward.
I look at it as changes has got to start somewhere, and we started in IT, and I see it in other departments as well. Not that IT brought that about to other departments, but I have seen that change. I mean, and Felina mentioned earlier the NCLGISA board. I mean, when I came on the board, and Felina and I have had these discussions plenty of times, but one of the reasons why I wanted to be on the board is to try to help bring about diversity with our board. But when I got on the board, the change had already started. And to me, I'm not downplaying any of the previous boards, but I think we have a tremendous board. We bounce ideas around. We respect each other's decision and opinions and ideas. And, you know, a lot of times we catch ourselves saying, well, I didn't think about it that way. And it has really made us grow. I think it's helped our organization grow, our board grow, and even us as individuals.
Yeah. Jennifer, you know, talking about being in a call center, good customer service and phone skills. Yeah, that was definitely big too. But yeah, so, you know, we talk about this, right? And I think Shay makes a good point. You know, how do we as leaders resolve these issues, right? You know, my intent isn't to have X number of people of color, X number of ladies, X number of whatever. You know, I don't want to hit a quota. I don't want to hit a number. I want good people with different backgrounds that are different than the people I already have, because I don't need, you know, I would love two of anyone I have. I mean, I've got great people. But, you know, I'd rather have somebody different, because every time we get somebody different, we get somebody better. Not better, but, you know, better than we were as a group.
Glenn, can I jump in here?
Yeah.
I think it was Scott Roach. Forgive me if I'm saying your name wrong, Scott. Earlier, he mentioned that I think it was Scott, mentioned that they have trainings. Oh, here it is. We've built social time into our calendar to make the team more comfortable with each other and hopefully ease communications. That is the key right there. A lot of times, whether we want to admit it or not, we steer away from things because it's unknown and we're uncomfortable. So I think that those sessions that Scott's talking about, that's a good place to start as well, making people feel more comfortable so they'll start talking more, and then it makes for a good pattern.
Yeah, I was going to mention, and that's definitely a good point, casual coffee chats with your team or what have you, just to get them comfortable, getting them to know one another. You don't even have to talk about work. You can talk about each other, you know, and the challenges that we face as individuals, as a family, or what have you. It's really getting to know each other and becoming a family. And believe me, when you start building those relationships, I think you'll see your department grow if it hasn't already.
One of the things that I am having difficulty with is who's in my pipeline and who, in terms of being able to hire with greater diversity. I think, and I don't think this is just my small town. I think small town America is, you get in local government, you get, you know, Joe's great aunt's son, or, you know, different situations where, you know, where so many people have an inside track, so to speak. Not necessarily you're going to hire them because they are related or in someone else's circle, but they may have more access to information in terms of what you're looking for, or even knowing that something is coming out. So I would be curious to know how people are expanding that applicant pool and making sure that they're getting applicants that are diverse. Because if everybody looks the same or has the same background that's applying, it makes it really difficult to have that diversity.
Well,
I think that's where a robust internship program and having entry level positions really lends itself to that. You know, if you can have those interns from the local community college, I mean, everybody's got a community college that's near them, and if you can get some interns from that or from the high school programs or whatever, you know, that's a great source. We've fought really hard to get some entry level positions here. We're a pretty big county, but we just don't have the tax base to be as big of a county as we are. So we had to create some entry level positions, and that's where you can do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I had mentioned that before, Glenn. Yeah, and we've utilized that process quite a bit here, and we can bring people in as trainees and at a lesser salary, and then after 3 months, 6 months of time, and they've proven themselves, then we can bring them up to the starting salary of that position. And it's worked well with us as far as, bringing in diverse people. And we're all diverse in some way. But one thing we also have to remember, we talked about inclusion, but also equity. You have to have the equity and inclusion, and with all this as well to make it work. And fighting for that equity as a manager, you have to fight for everybody the same. If they deserve it, then you fight for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you build up that relationship with that employee, that trust, by doing so. Even if you fail in that fight, you still build up that trust with the employees.
And I think, this conversation in the last couple of years especially has been a much easier conversation.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, in my mind, change is slow, right? The change is slow because we don't have, I'll give my county as a great example. We have great diversity in gender, right? Among our management team, our senior management team, so directors and up. We have great diversity in gender, not so much in race. And that's sometimes difficult because a lot of your, at least here and probably in your organization, some of your director hires are internal, right? So if that diversity didn't exist in that department 10 years ago where somebody could rise through the ranks, it's awful difficult to have that internal pool for those management and executive position hires. So sometimes this process is just slower than you'd like it to be, but then again, change that happens over time is more ingrained and is harder to get rid of than change that happens overnight.
Glenn and Steve, I wanted to point out, I'm not sure if you all saw it, but several people have posted in the chat. I think there's about at least 4 agencies, including mine. They've created an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion departments. Have you all's agencies thought about that?
I think they've thought about that, but trying to get positions of any type in our county is an act of Congress. We just don't have a lot of funding. We'd have to almost get rid of a position to add that position. So I know they've talked about it, but it hasn't happened. But I think that's wonderful because that proves the buy-in from on top. That proves that the intent is there at the highest levels. And so it's not just about having, a bias meeting, or something like that, or having, bias training for people. I think having that office really proves that that's something they want to do.
I'm a firm believer that people do what they want to do and they find money to do what they want to do.
That's right.
And I'm like Glenn, I think that's a great idea. Unfortunately, we do not do that in Brunswick County, but it's certainly a great idea. Getting management buy-in from the top would be the key. And like Glenn said, and it's the same here at Brunswick, we have a really good diverse workforce. But when it comes to the managers of the departments, I don't see the diversity there. I see the female to male ratio is pretty much even, but other than that, we're lacking. And I wish that would change for sure. But again, it's not just a race thing either. When you look around the room at our department heads, there was one time I was the youngest one in there, and probably the only young one in there. Now I'm the oldest one in there, and I look around and not much has changed over the years. And hopefully, change will occur over time. I'd like to see it sooner than later. And maybe having something like what's been suggested would be something to put us on that path.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jakisha. I work for the city of Wilmington. So, you guys mentioned the buy-in from the top, and being that we work in government, we're governed by councils and boards. When those councils and boards don't necessarily look like these departments that may be diverse with ethnicity and gender and ages and all that stuff, how do you get that buy-in from the top when they're so used to seeing what they are now?
Yeah. And exactly right. Because, they're elected too. So,
I mean, it's really hard. I mean, and I feel like sometimes this conversation is where if there is no Office of Diversity and Equity, do the managers or supervisors begin to pull on HR to kind of push that? Because it does flow into HR.
But I think one thing that's very important is that we're having this conversation and we're maintaining this conversation and we keep having this conversation and that we're not letting up on this conversation. And when you maintain that pressure, when you maintain that discussion, when you maintain that conversation, that's where the change is going to come from. If we give up and stop talking about this because we don't see enough movement as fast as we want it, right? Then we've given up. But if we don't stop having this conversation, if we don't stop trying to move things forward, if we don't stop pushing for this, then change is eventual.
So Glenn, I want to look at this from another perspective too, because this is something that I don't think we talk much about, and that's diversity in our vendors.
Yeah.
And what do we require of them? I will tell you that it's been my experience that the vast majority of people that local government does business with are, they may be diverse in the sense that they are women-owned businesses, which is probably the most diversity of what you see in those. But I mean, go through the profiles of our vendor groups, and you don't see a whole lot of people who are racially diverse. It just does not come across. And in dealing with them, they tend to have very similar backgrounds. So for the areas that they're representing. So what is our responsibility to hold our vendors accountable for having the diverse workforce?
Yeah. Well, I think again, the vendors to me are a mirror of us. Right? If we're more diverse and we are more, then they're going to be they have to be more diverse, right?
I think it brings about a domino effect. 30 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and the makeup at Brunswick County wouldn't be what it is today, and so it's slowly changing. But and we all wish it would move faster, for sure. But it is changing, and we just need to make sure that we keep it in that direction, and push it along. Like Glenn said, don't give up. I mean, keep pushing forward. The question about how do you bring about change in your organization when you have a board that's not made up of diversity either, and that is a challenge. That is a challenge, but that's something that the citizens within each respective county or city government, they need to be, I guess, beating down the path and trying to bring about that change even within that structure. And I think you'll see a domino effect.
I have to attest, I have to agree with exactly what you said, Steve. Our school board here where I live, I don't live in, anyway, my school board is comprised of all old white men, every last one of them, which is not what our county is composed of. But we had parents come in, and not all parents who look like me, but parents came in of all races, all ages came in and said, you're not representing our schools. And so, like you said, it's gonna take people standing up and people, speaking out to get some of these changes made. And I do have to say, they have accepted a new diversity program. They approved a new diversity program. So that's the beginning. And like Glenn said, we have to keep those conversations going.
And I want to point out something Lara said in the chat. Training the diverse workforce for leadership roles. Absolutely. By having a leadership academy, having leadership training, having mentorship, you're speaking my language. And that's something that I'm very passionate about. I want to mentor everybody on my team to be able to take my role if that's something that they're interested in moving towards. I want to have, I'm trying to get a leadership academy training throughout our entire county so that we can do that. Yes, that's something else that has to happen. We have to have not only the diversity on our team, we have to have the willingness to bring them up, to train them, to give them the training, because I don't care who you are and what you look like or anything like that. I can't stand when we promote people into management and don't give them training in management. We promote them for being really good at what they went to school for, and we give them a brand new job and give them absolutely no training, and then we wonder why they're not successful. Which doesn't make any sense to me. If they're gonna be trained so well that you promote them, well then train them to be what they're in now. And that's just that. I'm sorry, but that's something I'm really passionate about. I think we're getting close to our end though of time. Are we not, Felina?
You have 13 more minutes.
Okay, good.
This is Sherelle again. I would like to make a point just to kind of piggyback off of, I forgot who stated it, about having your council to look like your community. Here in High Point, we do have 4 minority councilmen. And so this year they voted in to have the diversity inclusion position added, this year. And so we have that, but not only that, they hired our very first female city manager, and she's of color. So I'm looking forward to the forward thinking that will bring, and I'm hoping for great success, because out of our city, we only have 3 minority directors. We have about 1,500 employees, and of those 3 minority directors, only 1 is female. So, that's to me a very low number when you're looking at a city. We're not a big city, but of that.
Yeah, you are. You're the 8th largest city.
High peasy.
Yeah, you're the 8th largest city, but you didn't just hire a woman of color.
Yes.
Right? You hired an amazing leader.
Yes.
You hired an amazing leadership guru. I mean, Tasha is amazing on every level. So yeah, that's what you're right. That's what helps. So it's not just what we're doing at work, guys. It's what we're doing, in our communities. By getting diverse, people of diversity elected. That's what's going to help the change too. So it's not just what we're doing at work. Hey, you know what? We need to be involved in the community too to move this forward.
And to your point, Sherelle, we actually, from the time that I started with Brunswick County up to probably about 10 years ago, we had nothing but older county managers with the same name of Glenn and I, old white guys. And basically, our department heads represented that same look and feel. And then we ended up hiring a amazing lady for our county manager, and all that started to change. And we got more women in as department heads, and so we have the diversity there. But we still need to have work to do as far as people of color. I think we only have one department head at this time out of 28 department heads of color. The most I've seen was 3. That's still not a good ratio at all to me. That still is not bringing in, that diversity and the thinking process that we need, to move forward. So Brunswick County has a lot of work to do still.
I think one other thing that we probably haven't mentioned is, when we are successful, right? I've got a much more diverse group now than was here when I walked in the door 5 years ago, right? And this group is more successful than any IT has ever been in this county. And the question eventually comes, why? Why? Well, it's partly it's culture, right? But that culture is built upon our diversity, and it's built upon the diversity of thought and the diversity of experience that we have in this group. So it's a really important point.
One of the things that I appreciate about working for a local government, I worked most of my career in the private sector and work for the city of Winston now. And when I first talked through the purchasing procedure with my boss, he was like, make sure that they fulfill our MWBE requirements. And I was like, what does that mean? And it really is important to our city that we try and find minority and women-owned businesses as our vendors, and we really live out that commitment. And talk just like you were saying about my team that I work with, both my immediate team and the larger department. I've never worked with a group this diverse in 25 years. So, it's the people that I worked with in the private sector always pretty much looked like me, white guys. So it's been a wonderful experience working with such a great group of people who have so much to bring to the table, so many different perspectives.
Definitely have to keep the ball rolling, and again, I refer back to the makeup of our board. I mean, and I'm not putting Felina on the spot, but Felina, being a lady of color, she had her challenges when she came on the board, and she handled those better than anybody that you could ever dream about. And now our board has quite a few people of color, and not just that, but we are not made up of just CIOs or directors. We're made up of what represents NCLGISA, our membership. We reflect that now. And again, I can't stress how productive we have become because of that.
So when it comes to I'm going to go back to like where the hiring process, or, when you're interviewing new employees for a position, as the gentleman just said prior to that, having the minority business as vendors and whatnot, and that's great. I know that some of the local governments and or school systems, they'll do job fairs and things of that sort. And if we're trying to get to that point where a lot of our departments are more diverse, I'm speaking from a personal aspect. I attended and graduated from an HBCU, and I am proud of where I am in IT. And I didn't even graduate with a business, with a a degree in information systems. It was on the business side. But to me, this is where you have to start targeting and reaching out to them, because they are producing fantastic talent, even if it's entry level. But if you're going to put them in a position to where they can grow, and like, I think it was you, Steve, that said, you know, or Glenn that said that if they want to have my position, I want to train them to get there. You know, some of those things, reach out to them. I mean, I can tell you, I went to a couple jobs fairs when I was I graduated from Shaw in Raleigh. And I don't remember seeing like companies like this and places like that. You know, it was more smaller businesses, which is fine. Small businesses need great employees too. But, and for those who don't know, I just saw it. HBCU stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities. Sorry, this is what happens when you go to one, because people would just say that shortly. But my suggestion would be reach out, and not even for the city of Wilmington. There isn't one here, but that doesn't mean you can't take a trip down to Raleigh, Charlotte, Elizabeth City, Fayetteville. You know, we have a lot. We have a ton here.
Sure. And I think that also extends into the virtual world. You know, I mean, I do a lot. I don't know if we're connected on LinkedIn, but I try to do a lot on LinkedIn to bring anyone up. You know, somebody's getting ready to hit the job market. You know, I'm there to, you know, help them get that, get into it, and I'm happy to mentor whoever wants to be mentored, whether they're private, public, whatever. You know, so I think you're right. You know, we can make that road trip, but I think we can also do it even virtually, and then the reach is even further.
So the important thing, I guess, to leave with is that, you know, everybody wants change, and it's up to each one of us, especially ones that are here today, you know, in this discussion and also further discussions of, it's up to us to initiate that change, to help motivate people, to show them how diversity brings about productivity. If you go and do searches on the internet, you'll see statistics that'll are mind-blowing, how more diverse companies have better profitability. So diversity works, and we have to show our senior management, show our peers, and even our subordinates that diversity actually does work. It works for all of us.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys. We have about 2 minutes left, and I have to read this sponsor, end of session sponsor information. Carolina Advanced Digital is a gold sponsor. Carolina Advanced Digital is a nationally recognized leader in technology infrastructure and security solutions. Family owned and operated since 1985, the company provides exceptional engineering services and products to government, education, healthcare, and commercial clients across the U.S., including Fortune 100 and 500 companies. The Department of Defense and civilian agencies headquartered in Cary, North Carolina, Carolina Advanced Digital services clients nationwide. Thank you all for attending this session. It's going to be open for about 11 more minutes, but I'm going to stop the recording. And if you want to stay, you can, but the recording will stop, and we are done with our session. Thank you so much.
And I just want to